In Lizette Lancaster now. She's from the Crime and Justice Information Hub at the Institute for Security Studies. Lizette, talk to me about some of the trends in kidnapping in South Africa. I've heard a stat this evening that cases have risen by 200% in the last 10 years. Would you agree with that stat?
Yes, so if we look at the last released annual report stats by the police for 2001-2002, it was just under 200%. And when we start looking at the statistics that was released by the Minister for the quarters ending in March this year, from April last year to March this year, we are seeing it's closer to 256%. Of course, that's not our final figure. We'll wait for the annual report again by the police to give us annual stats. But yes, it's more than 200% now.
That's very distressing. Talk to me about how we define kidnapping, because one thinks immediately of a person being held for ransom because we've all seen the movies. But under kidnapping, do we also have children being trafficked? Is that kidnapping as well? Talk to me about the different definitions.
So kidnapping is the removal of a person. It's very often not children, removed against their will, from where they, so against their will. Whereas often it gets confused with abductions, where it is a child being taken out of parental care, either by a boyfriend, girlfriend, or somebody that is close to them. So abduction has got another motive. It's often by a child's you want to say, partner, and it's something very different. In terms of the kidnapping statistics, children are kidnapped, predominantly taken without permission, by one guardian, without the permission of another. So they make up those type of kidnappings about 2%. But what we've seen from the statistics, most kidnappings are related to robberies and hijackings and other types of robberies. About 10% relate to sort of sexual offences and that sort of terrible type of crime. There, sometimes we do have children, also in the ransoms and extortion kidnappings, but children are often in the minority because people are quite hesitant to kidnap children because they know that it will lead to very in-depth investigations. So most people kidnapped are for robberies, followed by retaliations and revenge, followed by taxi-related incidents, domestic violence. So, ransom and extortion is a very small percentage of those reported to the police.
And I mean, that's an important point that Aisha also made, that sometimes, often the first thing the family is told is don't go to the police, and people are scared because they don't want to endanger the person who's been taken. Is there an epicenter for kidnapping? Because I'm hearing different things. I'm hearing that it's on the rise in Buffalo City, but I hear, that in Gauteng it's really bad. We also know that if it's linked into taxis, it's probably KwaZulu-Natal. Is there an epicenter for kidnapping in South Africa?
Yes, we do hear about kidnappings in KwaZulu-Natal and Western Cape, especially very high-profile incidents. But they are far surpassed by Gauteng, where about more than half of reported incidents of kidnapping take place. So it is sort of the epicenter where you see, especially the robberies driving those type of kidnapping.
So if I had to ask you what type of kidnapping on the rise, is it ransom demand, deliberately planned, highly organized syndicates, or is it more the sort of robbery situation?
I think we can safely say that it's all of the above.
Okay.
What we are seeing is a proliferation of organized crime, and kidnapping has become quite a high reward, low risk type of venture. So we know, for instance, during hijackings and robberies, people are taken what they call the express kidnappings in order to withdraw money or to make sure that tracker devices are not enabled too quickly. Also, with the rise of banking apps, they keep victims so that they can access online banking with the help of the victim. So those make up about 63% of kidnappings in places like Gauteng.
Right.
Of course, with violent crime, on the rise exponentially in the past decade, you then also have to look at other group violence, such as retaliations, revenge.
So there's a lot. Yeah, it's not a straight line, is what I'm hearing. So bearing in mind that, is it possible to say how many kidnapping syndicates are operating in South Africa, kidnapping for ransom, or is it just all part of the criminal environment?
It has become quite entrenched in the criminal environment. The syndicates that make use of kidnapping or use that as one of the tools to commit other crimes, such as extortion or theft of, and banking types of crime, whatever, they need a person for, has now become a type of modus operandi shared across the board.
That's a bit worrying.
And the problem with that, yes, and the problem with that is it sort of coincides with the rise of organized crime in general. We see extortion groups. So it is this proliferation that's hard to measure, and we know it affects all walks of life, all types of agencies. They could be complicit. People get kidnapped for when business dealings get bad.
Yeah.
People get kidnapped. Or barterings.
So that I would imagine that makes it very tricky to try and track people down. If you're tracking one syndicate that you know is responsible for most of the kidnappings, maybe you can focus your energies. And I want to ask how you feel the police are doing, because we know that sort of specialised units for dealing with criminality, kidnapping rather, have had success. We've seen it in the Western Cape. And we've also seen just this week with the Grinder case. This is this young 18-year-old who was on a dating app and he was kidnapped that way, found, I think, in a hostel in Denver. 7 arrests this week, and they believe it's linked to multiple kidnapping cases. So are the police getting a handle on it?
Well, we hope so. We are talking here about over 15,000 kidnapping cases that were reported to the police between April last year and March this year. It comes to about 42 kidnappings a day reported to the police. So that's quite a lot of kidnappings on top of hijackings and murders and other types of crimes to investigate. So the special task teams have definitely made a huge dent. But of course, it is quite a serious situation. And as we see with as you say, the Grinder case, is that if you take out these people, you can effectively reduce the number of kidnappings by potentially over 50 committed by them. So this type of successes are very important and need to be applauded, especially because you look at the role crime intelligence played and other groups. So the question is just, are they capable to deal with so many syndicates, which we can't even quantify? And then, of course, the next question would be, will they be able to have dedicated resources to fully investigate this crime so that we have a prosecutor-led investigation with strong evidence that could lead to prosecutions? Because only then we can claim ultimate successes. And of course, the ultimate success will be a drop in the crime stats.
Yes, indeed. It sounds like it's a big mountain to climb, even with some recent successes. Thank you so much for your perspective. Really much appreciated. Lizette Lancaster, she's from the Crime and Justice Information Hub at the Institute for Security Studies, telling us 42 reported kidnappings a day. Of course, that's across a variety of categories, but all categories of kidnappings on the rise. 15,000 kidnappings reported between April last year and March this year.